Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Giridhari Radha Giridhari Radhe Jaya Radha Giridhari Radha Giridhari Radhe Jaya Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladev Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gauranika Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev सर जय जय श्री राधा गिरिधारी भगवान की जय जय जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा मैया की जय जय गौर निताई की जय जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय गुरु महाराज की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय. So Hare Krishna once again to all the devotees who have joined today. Please accept my humble obeisances. So today we will continue to read from Canto 4 of Srimad Bhagavatam. But before that, we will start off by reading Srila Prabhupada's Leelamrita. So please just bear with me whilst I share my screen. So Prabhu, can I confirm that everyone can see my screen?
Yes, Mataji, we can see. No.
Nice. And Prabhuji, I am starting from this section. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Mataji. Yes.
Yeah, cool. Okay. So today we continue to read from Srila Prabhupada's Leelamrita, and we are reading from chapter 25 titled Our Master Has Not Finished His Work. The Hayagriva, it's a night I'll never forget. We turn on the altar lights behind the Jagannaths, light candles, and chant in the flickering shadows. It is solemn chanting, and even more solemn dancing. News quickly spreads down Haight Street, and soon the temple is crowded with others come to chant with us through the night. Mukunda and Janaki phoned the New York, but there is no additional information. Kirtananda is spending the night in the hospital beside Swamiji's bed. No one else is being allowed in. Hospital regulations. Yes, everyone in New York is chanting. We chant past midnight. Most of the guests leave, but none of us yet feel sleepy. The chanting overtakes us in waves. My mind wanders to Swamiji, to New York, to the future, to the past. I have to yank it back into the room to confirm the present, to realize why we are here chanting, to petition Sri Krishna to spare our master a little longer to allow him to spread Lord Chaitanya's glorious Sankirtan movement around the world. The chanting is always here, insistent. By 2 a.m., I begin to tire. I change instruments just to keep awake, sometimes playing mridanga, sometimes cymbals or harmonium. Many dance to stay awake. The girls serve prasadam. sliced apples. It is dangerous to sit next to the wall, an invitation to doze off. We are so frail. Hare Krishna soothes. The chanting releases us from so much needless fretting. Through it, we can relieve tensions, grieve, plead, and hope. It is between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., the most aesthetic hour, the Brahma Muhurta hour before the dawn. If he is alive at this hour, surely he will live. We sing, we chant on beads, constant Hare Krishna. We chant through the usual 7 a.m. kirtan hour and into the morning. We chant 14 hours without cessation. We cleanse the dust from the mind's mirror. We see Krishna and Swamiji everywhere. Surely now he is well. During the night, Srila Prabhupada's heart pained him. The next day, he remained in critical condition. He could speak, but softly, and was too exhausted to converse. Skeptical of the doctors, he diagnosed himself a heart attack affecting part of his brain, thus paralyzing the left side of his body. Massage, he said, was the cure. So, Prabhuji, shall I stop here or continue?
Yes, Matri, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, so Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita ki jai.
Jai Jai.
So just bear with me. I'll share my screen again, and then we'll continue.
Yes, Matri, the screen is visible.
Yeah, it's visible. Okay. So once again, Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. I am very, very fortunate to be given the opportunity to purify myself through this service. Now, I understand I have no qualifications of my own, but through the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, Guru, and those who have carved the path for us, and through the association of assembled devotees, I am able to say a few words. I humbly pray at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada and to my Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Radha Govind Goswami Maharaj, to please bless me so that whatever I say is aligned to scriptural injunction. So today we start a new chapter, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 31, and the title of the chapter is Narad Instructs the Prachettas. And today we discuss verse 1. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Narayana Namaskritya, Naram Chaiva Narottamam, Devim Saraswati Vyasam, Tato Jayam Mudire, Nashta Prayashu Bhadreshu, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, Bhagavati Uttam Shloke, Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtike, Srinvatam Swakatha Krishna, Punya Sharvana Kirtana, Yantastu hiya bhadrani vidunoti suritsatam. So the verse reads, Maitreya uvacha tata utpana vijnana ashu adhokshaja bhashitam smaranta atmajay bharyam vishraja pravrajan grahat. Maitreya uvacha tata utpana vijnana ashu adhokshaja bhashitam smaranta atmajay bharyam Vishrajay parvrajan grahat. Maitreya uvacha tata utpana vijnana ashu adhokshaja bhashitam smaranta atmajay bharyam Vishraja pravrajan grahat. Would someone like to recite?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Pranam Prabhuji, please go ahead.
Sorry. मैत्र उवाच तथा उत्पन्न विज्ञान आशो अदुक्षज भाषितं स्मरन्त आत्मजे भार्यं वृषज प्रावर्जं गृहात् हरे कृष्ण
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I'm also trying.
Go ahead.
Maitreya Uvacha Tata Utpanna Vigyana Ashabdhokshaja Bhashitam Smaranta Atmajo Bharyam Visrijya Prabrajan Grihat. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Go ahead,
Tata
Mataji.
utpanna vigyana ashwadhakshaj bhashitam smaranto atmaje bharyam visrijya prabrajan grihat. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, I am also trying.
Thank you.
Maitreya Uvacha Tata Utpanne Vigyana Asha Adhakshaja Bhashitam Smaranta Atmaji Bharyam Visrijya Prabrajan Grihat. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. May I try, please?
Yes, Mataji, please go ahead.
Maitriya Vacha Tat Utpanna Vigyana Ashwadhokshaja Bhashitam Samranta Atmaje Bharyam Vishrajya Pravarjan Grihat. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Would anyone like to read the word for word meaning?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Go ahead,
Maitreya Uvacha, Maitra said, Tata, thereafter, Utpanna developed, Vijnana possessing perfect knowledge, Ashu, very soon, Adhakshaja, by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhashitam, what was enunciated, Smarantaha, remembering, Atmaje, unto their son, Bharyam, their wife, Visrijya, after giving, Prahabrajan, left, Grihat, from home. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Would anyone like to read the translation?
I can Mataji.
Go ahead, Mataji. Thank you.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The great saint Maitreya continued. After that, the Prachetas lived at home for thousands of years and developed perfect knowledge in spiritual consciousness. At last, they remembered the blessings of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and left home, putting their wife in chance of faith. Can you up, cursor?
Yep, sure.
Their wife
In charge of a perfect son.
perfect son. Okay, thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So we've got the purport. Would anyone like to read the purport?
May I, Mataji, please?
Yep, go ahead, Mataji.
Peppered by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. After the Pratyachas has finished their penances, they were blessed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord blessed them by telling them that after finishing their family life, they would return home back to Godhead in due course of time. After finishing their family life, which lasted thousands of years according to the calculation of the demigods, the Prachetas decided to leave home, putting their wife in the charge of a son named Daksha. This is the process of Vedic civilization. In the beginning of life, as a brahmachari, one has to undergo severe penances and austerities in order to be educated in spiritual values. The brahmachari or student is never allowed to mingle with women and learn from the beginning of life about sex enjoyment. The basic flaw in modern civilization is that boys and girls are given freedom during school and college to enjoy sex life. Most of the children are Vanshankar, meaning born of undesirable fathers and mothers. Consequently, the whole world is in chaos. Actually, human civilization should be based on the Vedic principles. This means that in the beginning of life, boys and girls should undergo penances and austerities. When they are grown, they should get married, live for some time at home, and beget children. When the children are grown up, the men should leave home and search for Krishna consciousness. This way, one can make one's life perfect by going home to the kingdom of God. Unless one practices his penances and austerities in his student life, he cannot understand the existence of God. Without realizing Krishna, one cannot make his life perfect. The conclusion is that when the children are grown, the wife should be put in the children's charge. The husband may then leave home to develop Krishna consciousness. Everything depends on the development of mature knowledge. King Parchinna Bahisat, the father of the Prachetas, left home before the arrival of his sons, who were engaged in austerity within the water. As soon as the time is ripe, or as soon as one has developed perfect Krishna consciousness, he should leave home, even though all his duties may not be fulfilled. Prachinna Bahisat was waiting for the arrival of his sons, but following the instructions of Narad, as soon as his intelligence was properly developed, he simply left instructions for his ministers to impart to his sons. Thus, without waiting for their arrival, he left home. Giving up a comfortable home life is absolutely necessary for human being and is advised by Prahlad Maharaj, Hitvatma Patam Griham Anantakupam. To finish the materialistic way of life, one should leave his so-called comfortable home life, which is simply means for killing the soul. Atma Patam. The home is considered to be dark well covered by grass, and if one falls within this well, he simply dies without anyone's caring. One should therefore not be too much attached to family life, for it will spoil one's development of Krishna consciousness. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So that's a very, very beautiful purport by Srila Prabhupada. So today we're starting a new chapter titled Narada. Narada instructs the Prachetas. In terms of background and context, so far in the last few chapters, we got to see the following events unfold. So we understand that the 10 sons of King Prachinabharashit, called the Prachetas, on the instructions of their father, they went to perform austerities. On the way, they had the good fortune of meeting Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva instructed them on how to please the Supreme Lord. So they performed austerities underwater for 10,000 years, and through this, they achieved the darshan and benedictions from Lord Vishnu. Now, Lord Vishnu gives them some instructions as well as some benedictions, and based on the instructions of the Lord, the Prachetas married a qualified girl, Marisha, and they had a son named Daksha. So in this way, we come to a new chapter. So even before I start sharing my realizations on the verse today, like if we look at the life of the Prachetas, like they are so special. In the beginning of their youth, they are blessed with the darshan of Lord Shiva. Then they have the good fortune of meeting Lord Vishnu. And then in this chapter, like this chapter indicates just from the title, that they will have the good fortune of meeting with Narad Muni. And so we are equally fortunate to be hearing and listening about the Prachetas. So just reading the verse again, Maitreya Uvacha Tata Utpana Vijnana Ashuadokshaja Bhashitam Smaranta Atma Jai Bharyam Vishraja Parvrajan Graha. Translation: The great saint Maitreya continued. After that, the Prachetas lived at home for thousands of years and developed perfect knowledge in spiritual consciousness. At last, they remembered the blessing of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and left home, putting their wife in charge of a perfect son. So before I can give some realizations, I just seek blessings. Om Jnana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Dakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasme Shri Guruvai Namam. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakti Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, as we have seen, this verse carries a very, very beautiful purport, and Srila Prabhupada, he covers a lot of very important points. Now, there are a couple of points that really, really stand out. The first is the role of austerities and penances in our spiritual life. Then there's the perfection of spiritual knowledge. Now, the central theme of this verse is that it talks about leaving home. So we get to see what is the art of leaving home. So that's the three things that we will be discussing today. So when we look at like I've said before, the key subject matter this verse deals with is about leaving home. So in this verse, like Matrimony tells Vidura that in due course of time, the Prachetas remembered the blessing of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and left home. So we look at what does leaving home actually mean. Now, in the purport of Canto 7, Chapter 5, Canto 7, Chapter 5, Verse 5, Srila Prabhupada clearly explains that leaving home means taking vanaprastha. But the question is, the question that may be asked is whether it means leaving home or staying home. So the answer to that question is that it depends on whether the home environment is conducive for one to fully remove themselves from the bodily concept of life. If the answer is yes, that yes, the home environment is conducive, then one can remain at home and both the husband and wife, they can nicely follow the Vana ashram. So instead of going to the forest, you invite the forest home, meaning you live a very simple and austere life. Now, this is nicely explained by Her Grace Malti Devi Dasi in a short YouTube video that I listened as part of preparing for this class. It is titled the Vana Prashta Ashram. Is it still relevant today? I'll encourage everyone to listen to that. It's a very short video, but she really brings the essence out in terms of how we can bring the forest home. So, if on the other hand, the home environment is not conducive, then the solution would be either to leave home and go to the dham, or just, you create the environment so that it works in terms of achieving the objective of removing yourself from the bodily concept of life. So we'll continue to dig this a little bit deeper. Now, from a spiritual point of view, leaving home or retiring from family life simply means removing yourself from the comfort of family life. Now, it requires cutting ourselves from the deep-rooted entanglement. Now, we understand that in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, Krishna speaks of the banyan tree. And in verses 3 and 4, he tells us what we must do to remove ourselves from the entanglement. Now, what does he say? He says one must cut down the strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. So, Srila Prabhupada, in the purport of today's verse, also uses some very harsh or strong words. And I quote, he says in the purport, giving up comfortable home life is absolutely necessary for human beings and is advised by Prahlad Maharaj. So, Srila Prabhupada, despite, we understand that he's a Shakti Abhishar avatar, but despite that, when he's writing his purport, he's quoting straight from the Shastras. So he's saying, this is not what I'm saying. I mean, Srila Prabhupada's saying is good enough for us, but he is saying it's advised by Prahlad Maharaj that hitvatma patam graham andhakupam, to finish the materialistic way of life one should leave this so-called comfortable home life, which is simply a means for killing the soul, Atma Patam. The home is considered to be a dark well covered by grass, and if one falls within this well, he simply dies without anyone's caring. One should therefore not be too attached to family life, for it will spoil one's development of Krishna consciousness, unquote. So next up, we look at, leaving home also means developing the practice to prepare ourselves for the final stage of life. In other words, preparing to leave your body, with the aim being not to return back, not to take up a material body again. And this is one reason why one removes themselves away from family, because that gives them a greater chance of remembering the goal of life. But then again, as we know, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 8.6, yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. So, whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, or son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So it is said that, how you live your life is how you will leave it. So coming back to today's verse of the Prachetas leaving home, when we think about it, like many people leave home, whether it is to, go live in the dham or to move to a more conducive spiritual environment. The point is that their stories don't come in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So why are we studying the Prachetas leaving home? Now, we are studying this because it's important to understand how they left home. So we need to understand what was their consciousness throughout their life and how it was that consciousness that made it easy for them to leave. So it is said if we don't develop our consciousness throughout our life, we will not be able to leave home. So that's kind of the bottom line, that consciousness is something that we need to work on a daily basis, so that when the time is ripe, and the time is right, it'll be easy for us to move on. And the next slide we'll look at, so what exactly is the art of living home? And as we've discussed, it's about developed consciousness. Now, the whole process of leaving home is to get away from the entanglement of life so that we can live our body in the right consciousness. Now, leaving home, therefore, simply means cultivating the right consciousness throughout one's life. The Prachetas did not get up one fine morning and decided to leave home. Their whole life was lived in a way so that when the time came, they left. Now, this is why the previous chapters talk about the activities of the Prachetas. Now, in verse 38, 39, and 40 of the previous chapter, the activities of the Prachetas is very, very nicely summarized. So I just thought as part of today's class, we'll just quickly revisit those verses so we can understand why it was an easy transition for them to leave. So in verse 38, when the Lord appears and they offer prayers, this is what they say. Would someone like to just read the translation?
Dear Lord, by virtue of a moment's association with Lord Shiva, who is very dear to you and who is your most intimate friend, we are fortunate to attain you. You are the most expert physician capable of treating the incurable disease of material existence. On account of our great fortune, we have been able to take shelter at your lotus feet. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Guruji. So this verse is being said by the Prachetas to Lord Vishnu. Remember, this is after the Lord has already asked them to ask for a benediction. So, despite performing austerities for 10,000 years, they pass the credit of seeing the Lord face to face to their spiritual master, to Lord Shiva. This shows that they have already achieved perfection. They already possess all the 26 divine qualities that make a person worthy of going back to Godhead, yet they still remain humble. A similar verse is said by Prahlad Maharaj in Canto 7, chapter 9, verse 28, in his prayers to Lord Narasimha, he says his first and foremost duty is to serve his spiritual master. Why? Because he says, it is my spiritual master that has saved me from gliding into hell. So, going back to the next slide where we look at the next two verses. Would anyone like to read 39 and 40? Again, we reading from the previous chapter, which summarizes the activities of the Prachetas.
I can,
Correct.
Mataji.
Yeah, go ahead, Mataji.
Dear Lord, we have studied the Vedas, accepted a spiritual master, and offered respect to Brahmanas, advanced devotees, and aged personalities who are spiritually very advanced. We have offered our respects to them, and we have not been envious of any brother, friends, or anyone else. We have also undergone severe austerities within the water and have not taken food for a long time. All these spiritual assets of ours are simply offered for your satisfaction. We pray for this benediction only and nothing more. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So, based on their activities, a certain consciousness developed in them, and this was the cause of them leaving home in the right consciousness. Srila Prabhupada would often use the example of Artha Kukuti Nyay, the logic of half a hen. That is, if the right consciousness is not developed, or when one's consciousness was not properly situated, then it leads to misguided or faulty decisions. Now, just to look at this in a little bit more detail. So, Ardha means half, Kukuti hen, and Nyaya logic. So, this logic of half a hen is used to illustrate faulty reasoning, where one takes only the parts of a situation or argument that are convenient or beneficial, and they ignore the rest. So I think we're familiar with the story of that man who wanted to keep that half of the hen that laid eggs, but got rid of the part that needed to be fed. So, if we wonder how is this logic applicable here when we talk about leaving home or we talk about retiring from material life, I was listening to this lecture by His Grace Shesha Prabhu, a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And, he said that Srila Prabhupada did not approve of people leaving home to come live in the Dham without having the right consciousness developed. Because when they did that, when the right consciousness was not developed, they would find themselves another family in the Dham. So, they go back to square one, back in Andakupa, dark well that Prahlad Maharaj warns us about. So the critical point is that, it's our consciousness that needs to be developed, and that would be the catalyst for our success in terms of leaving family life or cutting that attachment. People might think that leaving home is a means of escaping responsibilities that come with it, and they'll give the logic that leaving home is recommended in the Shastra. But if the right consciousness is not developed, they will never be able to do so. And like I've said before, it is said that how you will go from the world is largely dependent on how you have lived your life. So it's something that we need to be very conscious of on a daily basis, rather than when the time is right, it'll happen. It's not quite like that. So the second point that we can get from this verse is that leaving home means removing oneself from the comforts that home provides. And so how do we do that? How do we invite the forest home so that we can be successful in terms of embracing death? It is said that the key principle is to live simply and to perform austerities so that we can prepare ourselves austerities and penances. That's the key in our spiritual life that will help us see the end goal. In the upcoming verses of this chapter, we will see that even after leaving home, the Prachetas, already they have been given the benediction. Like the Supreme Personality of Godhead has already given them the benediction that they will, return back to the spiritual world. And already we know that they are highly qualified, yet we see them once again perform austerities. Now, so this is another key learning for us, that austerities and penances in our spiritual life will be the catalyst that will help us to see that end goal. It will help us to remain focused. So, you know, the Prachetas, oh, sorry, I've moved ahead. So the Prachetas, you know, from them we learn that at no point we should become comfortable in our spiritual practices. You know, you would have heard advanced devotees would often say that, you know, when you've mastered a service, or, you know, stretch yourself, you know, don't remain in your comfort zone. Why? Because there's a tendency that if we remain in our comfort zone, we become complacent. So we stop putting in the effort. So, you know, that's another key point here, that we've got to continuously stretch ourselves. And then the second thing, or the second point from this verse is that the Prachetas, they perfected spiritual knowledge. So they perfected knowledge. So Vijnana, what does that mean? It means one understands not just sastric knowledge, but they also apply the knowledge in their lives. So the formula for perfect knowledge is an impetus for action, a call for action. So, you know, the activities of the Prachetas, as outlined in the previous chapter, is an attestation of them perfecting knowledge. Now, if you can try this test for yourself, because I know I have. If you ever find yourself losing taste in your spiritual life, just think back and check your actions. You'll find that the root cause of the dissatisfaction is a lack of putting to practice what is recommended in the Shastra. So we know what we need to do, but we don't actually put it into action, and that makes our spiritual life quite dry. This slide here is probably one of my favorite ones. Spiritual knowledge is meant to make us devotionally fit, not intellectually fat. Now, this is taken from the daily Gita inspiration calendar that Chaitanya Charan Prabhu distributed in his last visit to New Zealand. It captures the essence quite nicely, that you know, spiritual knowledge will only work its magic in our spiritual life if we put it into action. Otherwise, we run the risk of becoming intellectually fat. And, you know, over here, I'm speaking for myself. I sometimes find myself lacking in terms of being devotionally fit. You know, the theory part, I enjoy that, but it's only when the theory and action work together that the magic will happen. In a lecture by His Holiness Badri Narayan Swami, he was sharing about an episode that he witnessed as a young brahmachari. You know, he said there was this Sanskrit, and I think some of you listening in today would be aware of this Sanskrit professor who was always sort of picking on petty things, like, you know, what he would say to Srila Prabhupada, so Srila Prabhupada, how is Krishna pronounced? You know, he said, you know, people chant it differently. Is it Krishna? Is it Kisna? Is it Trisna? So, you know, he was sort of making a Mickey out of it. And Srila Prabhupada gave him a perfect response. You know, he said, you don't worry. Krishna knows who is calling. So, you know, this professor was always, you know, picking on things like that. So once His Holiness Badri Narayan Swami, he was sharing that Srila Prabhupada asked him, have you read Bhagavad Gita? So his response was, of course I have. The second question that Srila Prabhupada asked him was, have you understood it? And, you know, the Prabhu was sharing, he was in the room when this conversation took place. He said that, you know, he could see, they could sense that the professor was getting a bit irritated because he was a Sanskrit professor. So anyway, he keeps it cool, and then he says, yes, of course, I have understood it. Then Srila Prabhupada said, you know, so what are you going to do? And His Holiness Badrinaran Swami said, you know, it was worth seeing the professor's face. It was like a blank, you know, a blank look just crossed his face. The look was one that sort of like it sort of meant like it never occurred to him that reading the Bhagavad Gita meant that, after reading it, there was a call for action, that he had to do something. Now that is Vijnana. So realized knowledge, which means to activate change. So next up, knowledge, as we understand, determines how a person sees the world. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that there are 3 types of knowledge based on the different modes of material nature. So knowledge in goodness, passion, and ignorance. And Srila Prabhupada used to say that devotees are introspective sages. In other words, you need to be aware of what is the truth as it is when dealing with the material world. So whenever we deal with the material world, doubt and dissatisfaction is what should really be our focus. To be in, he always used to say, to be an introspective stage was also difficult. Why? Because the rest of the world, like the general populace, is going the other way, and the devotees are going the other way in the opposite direction. So, for example, to eat, drink, and be merry because you may die is a popular statement of the general populace. But if we look at the devotee standpoint, one who has realized knowledge knows the statement of the general populace is flawed. So, they would examine the statement, validate it with sastric evidence, and then make a decision. And the decision would be that to eat, drink, and be merry is a foolish paradise. So, because, we're not the body, and, happiness is merely the absence of suffering. So they would use sastric evidence to support their logic. So the introspective sages, the devotees, don't follow the general populace because they know that the general populace is gliding down hell. How so? So based on where one is born, one's Janam Bhumi, one automatically follows certain karma. And as Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport of today's verse, the vast majority of children are already born from undesirable parentage. So already they are automatically, without having to do much else, they are gliding to hell. Now, this statement is vetted by Prahlad Maharaj as well in Canto 7, Chapter 9, verse 28, in his prayers to Lord Narasimha, and I'd quote, he says, "My dear Lord, or Supreme Personality of Godhead, because of my association with material desires, one after another, I was gradually falling into a blind well full of snakes, following the general populace. But your servant, Narad Muni, kindly accepted me as his disciple and instructed me how to achieve this transcendental position. Therefore, my first duty is to serve him. How could I leave the service? I was gliding to hell, but it is my spiritual master who saved me, and therefore I wish for the benediction to serve his lotus feet." So quite the same mindset as the Prachetas have developed because of their consciousness, and which has come about as a result of penances and austerities. So in this way, we come to the summary. And we look at, there are 2 things that made it easy for the Prachetas to leave home. The first was penances, austerities and penances performed throughout their life. The second was having realized knowledge. They put into action the knowledge that they received. And both of these were done despite having obtained the Lord's benediction. So, that's something to ponder about. So the question that we may ask, or I definitely asked as I was preparing for this class, that how does this resonate with my situation, with our situation? We might think that, we're speaking of highly qualified from Paramahamsas here, highly qualified people. They've appeared, their stories are in the Bhagavatam. It was done in a separate yuga when things were so much simpler. What hope do we have? But you know what? We do have hope. If we look at our situation, Srila Prabhupada has also given us a benediction. What is the benediction that he has given us? Srila Prabhupada has carved a path for us as well. He has promised us that we too can go back to Krishna. And, if we look at it, our process is a lot simpler. All we've got to do is follow the four regulative principles. And mind you, if you read the Shastras correctly, following the four regulative principles is no austerity. It only makes us a human being, okay? It makes us from a four-legged animal to a two-legged human being. And then we've got to sincerely chant our Ram. But hey, there's more, right? In addition to these two things, he has given us so much more. He has given us his books. He has given us temples. He has given us deities. He has given us Rath Yatras, devotee association, you name it. All these are our benedictions that we have been blessed with. Srila Prabhupada has left us a legacy. It's up to us how we use this inheritance. If we utilize this sincerely, if we are serious about going back, then we too can make it back. So with these words, I'll end the class here, and I'll thank you all for listening to me. And so please feel free to add to what I've covered, or to add your realizations as well. So thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare
Thank
Krishna
you so
Prabhuji.
much for explaining that text so nicely right from the beginning, how we understand the living home, which is known as Banaprastha. Understanding is different than what we need to do. And Srila, as you explained through Srila Prabhupada instruction, even making your home, you can make the Banaprastha successful. Only thing, your consciousness. Once the consciousness is free of material desires, Banaprastha situation is always there.
Yep.
And so it is very important to understand the Banaprastha right in the right notion, how Bhagavad Gita, this 15th chapter in the beginning, 3 and 4 tells us only by acquiring the knowledge and being free from this attachment with the knowledge of detachment. That only gives you the right consciousness, how you can become a Banaprastha resident at your home itself. So this knowledge comes from Vigyan. Unless you realize it, as you explained, how the Badrinarayan Swami was being asked by Srila Prabhupada, what do you have learned from Bhagavad Gita? You are a scholar and you have already studied Bhagavad Gita, but what did you learn? So it looks like a very simple question and a awkward question, but the reality is that are we following the instruction given in the Bhagavad Gita right into our life or not? That is most important thing. So it's very, very important realizing the knowledge through action is the most important thing. If we are using the knowledge in our daily life, then only you are successful. Your Vigyan is successful. That's why Srila Prabhupada has given all the necessities for our life to be successful in acquiring the goal of life. Only the way we have to deal and accept the instruction in the very right consciousness. He has given every sorts of convenient to us. Only have to follow with right consciousness. Even for myself, I'm saying we do the chanting. 16 rounds, only 16 rounds or more, some more. But are you doing the chanting in the right consciousness, which is means faultless? That is important. Chanting Hare Krishna mantra, anybody can do. Whether the right consciousness is there, that is the main point. So Srila Prabhupada has kindly given all the facilities, but it is up to us how to attain that, how to use them in the right consciousness. And in the same way, we can attain the goal of life, even with staying at home. And that is what the chapter is talking about. Even you can make your home Panapastra Only what you have to do is to follow the regulations de- depicted in the Shastra. That's what it is needed.
Mhm.
Thank you so much explaining the points very nicely with right consciousness and right knowledge. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for the wonderful summary. Cool. So, any more realizations? If not, we can end the class.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavad Pranam, Hare Krishna.
Dhanvat Pranam, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much. Very nicely pointed out the gist of this verse. Very nicely, very scientifically, point-wise. Thank you for that. And the most important thing here is taking any decisions. What we are doing is based on right consciousness. That is important. The activities we do, in fact, the difference between a devotee and non-devotee often is confused because we are doing often same things. But the real consciousness is the real point of difference. We do one thing for one reason, and the materially attached person do the same things but in a different way. So instead of leaving the home, it is very important, as you have rightly told, that whether we have the right consciousness. Are you doing it for that? People are visit Vrindavan, but are they going there for higher realization of their for a progress in their devotional service, or he are going to a place? Vrindavan is otherwise many other like any other place. For some people going there, they find there what is the good thing, eatable things found there, and someone find out what else is there. So this is not the purpose of visiting Vrindavan. The purpose of visiting Vrindavan is to increase our progress to progress in devotional service and finding out a sadhu and hear from them the Lord Krishna, and remembering Krishna is more important. That's why one has to go to Vrindavan to hear from a pure devotee there that the Lord Lord was in this land, and feel the presence of the Lord there. Unless we do that, then there's no point of going there. And our Guru Maharaj often says that even going to a dham is sometimes more dangerous, in the sense because if your consciousness is not proper, you are likely to fall down even more if you go to
Yeah.
And also Narottam Das Thakur has in a Bengali poem, he has told that called Tirtha Jatra Parishram Kevali Maner Bhram, means going to a tirtha is often a mental problem. Because unless you develop your consciousness in the right direction, it is useless. But that doesn't mean we should not go there, but we should go there with proper consciousness and utilize that opportunity so that we can progress in our devotional service. Hare Krishna Mataji for bringing out that point while discussing this verse. Thank you once again. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanvat Pranam.
Dhanvat Pranam, Prabhuji.
Thank you for a very nice articulation of this verse. So many points to learn. One of the things I noticed is that these persons are been very, very fortunate, because they obeyed their father and they met the Vaishnava Lord Shiva, and then they were blessed by having a direct darshan of Lord Vishnu.
Yep.
And then they had darshan of Lord Brahma. And now they got instruction from Narad Muni.
Yep.
So I don't think anybody can be so fortunate. So in getting the right consciousness, how important is the blessing of the devotees?
It is very, very important, Prabhuji. Very important. And that is one of the reasons why, if you'll notice that in verse 38 of the previous chapter, the preachers, as soon as the preachers, when they're singing or they're praising, they're saying their prayers to the Supreme Lord, they mention that just by a moment's association, getting the blessings of a pure devotee is crucial. And in fact, it is said that is the success. That is actually the success that made them, achieve what they've achieved, because what did Lord Shiva, the most exalted Vaishnava, instruct them on? On Rudra Gita. So, he gave them the secret. The same goes when he gave those instructions to Dhruv Maharaj. And we also see Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj, in his prayers to Lord Narasimha, he says the same thing, that I was, just by being born in a family of Asuras, I was automatically gliding through to hell because of the activities that would have come by being born in that family. But it is through the mercy of Narad Muni, and therefore, this is even before Lord Narasimha offers him any benedictions. He's already saying, that is what, I've got to serve the lotus feet of my spiritual master. So that is actually the key, because we are not qualified in any way, shape, or form to get to the Supreme Lord ourselves. So it's through the mercy. It's through the mercy of that. That's really the crux of it. That's really, if you think about it, the Prachetas having the benediction, the greatest fortune was right at the beginning when they listened to the instructions of their father. They went to perform the austerities. They path crossing with Lord Shiva was the catalyst of their success further down the track, meeting the Lord face to face, and then now meeting Narad Muni. So that's that association with the pure devotee. That's the successful. That's the catalyst.
Thank you, Mataji. Such a nice explanation. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Dandavad Pranam, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Very, very beautiful class. Thank you so much. So many beautiful points come out. I was thinking, building on the point that you just mentioned, that sometimes we think that they are fortunate, we are not fortunate, but it is what they did with their fortune. Like it's like they invited, or they attracted the fortune to come to them, because initially they listened to their father and went for austerities. If they didn't do that, maybe they would not have met Lord Shiva. And then when they met Lord Shiva and he taught them something, they used that something to chant the Rudra Geet for 10,000 years. So they actually, and then each step by step, when they met Lord Vishnu, they praised him, they thanked the previous, good fortune they had. And then they moved on, they lived life. He instructed them, you get married. So they got married, they had a child. They lived life according to what he said. And so they actually attracted their good fortune to them. Their life was successful because they acted on instructions at each step of the way. That was just my realization. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, no, that's very true, Mataji. The other thing is that there's hope for us as well, because it is said that if we read or hear about these elevated devotees, we get I'm sure I've read it somewhere, that we get a tiny 1% or some percentage of that benediction ourselves. So, by Srila Prabhupada giving us this legacy, and we listening, and we're hearing about this, and we're reading about it, we are attracting that good fortune ourselves. And it might seem that they say that bhakti is it's a simple process, but it's not easy. It's the same as someone, and I know this is a material example, that if someone who has successfully lost weight, they will tell you it's easy, just eat less and move more. But the person that, in doing it, that's the hard part. So there's a lot of things. So Srila Prabhupada has given us so many things, and it's a matter of picking and choosing, doing our sadhana, our practices, and adding a little bit of practice in there, some active service, and the magic will definitely happen. So thank you, everyone. That was beautiful realization. So I think we can end the class here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Unless there's any more questions.
Vansha kalpatarubhyascha
patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. अनंतकोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। महावृष रंगादेवी माता जी की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। All glories to Assembled Devotees. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji, for your very nice class. Thank you, Hare
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.